Welcome to the Energy4Life podcast, where we explore the future of health and wellness to help you enhance your energy, health and purpose. I'm your host, Harry Massey, a pioneer in bioenergetics who's dedicated to looking beyond biochemistry to explore the innate healing power of the human body. Some of our episodes are also hosted by Niki Gratrix, an award-winning functional medicine practitioner and bioenergetic coach. We've both made it our mission to look beyond conventional medicine and mainstream science to help you get well and stay well. So enjoy the show. Welcome to the Energy4Life podcast. Now, today, every episode is a special episode, so I'm not quite sure why we say that, but it's just part of what you do on a podcast. But today we are joined by our co-host Niki Gratrix, and we're going to be talking about the overall Energy4Life program and some of the really, really interesting parts of it. We're going to get into a lot of detail. Now, I might just sort of give it a bit of an explanation and how it fits in with the overall sort of bioenergetic philosophy. But years and years and years ago, when we first met Peter Fraser, we naturally got pretty obsessed with NES and infoceuticals, which is obviously hugely influential and part of our healing journey. And actually, probably those first 4 years, I was just infoceutical crazy. And over time, I started to actually neglect some of the other sort of important things like diet and exercise and that type of thing. And I slowly started noticing some some non-optimal effects. But where it really became obvious was with actually Peter. And I hope I don't offend anyone by listening to this. But basically, Peter Fraser was this absolute genius. But sometimes when you're an absolute genius, you can also have massive blind spots. And basically, he was always making himself ill, and then he was always healing himself with infoceuticals. So the great thing of that is it basically was this huge driving force for all of the research and for creating the infoceuticals. And because of that, basically NES ended up existing. But because he was so focused on that, he wasn't particularly great at the habit changing. He wasn't particularly great at the sort of some of the mind stuff. Wasn't particularly great at diet, exercise. All of these other sort of core components. Like, not particularly aware of how he fitted in within the environment. Fortunately, that was to humankind's benefit, but ultimately it wasn't to his benefit, and illness caught him in the end, and he died, which wasn't a great time. But anyway, so with that all said, that's why for us it's just so important for people to basically learn and know as much as they can about all of these other health aspects, because basically, from a very broad theoretical perspective, if you can optimize or increase your energy, you can optimize and correct your control system, which we do through infoceuticals and My Health, but you also exchange energy correctly with the broader environment, and basically correct all of your habits. That's basically the path to better health. And Niki had actually been thinking about this. You've probably been thinking about it for your whole clinical career, right? And basically, after, is it 15 years in practice? I'm not sure how many.
Almost, yes, coming up to almost 20 now.
20. Niki showing our age. We're over 40 now. Ouch.
Definitely middle-aged.
In those very short 20 years, Niki's basically put this huge amount of thought and basically put together basically all of her knowledge, and actually researched in incredible depth on all of these subjects to make sure everything had basically the absolute latest frontier of each of these subjects, and ended up creating these 26 lessons. Obviously, in one podcast can't go through all the knowledge in those 26 lessons, but we'll pick out some interesting highlights from each section. So maybe I'll hand over to Niki, who can explain like the importance of sort of looking at these 4 overall sort of parts of health.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I'll get to that, and I'll also, just to kind of affirm what you were describing in terms of my own journey. You described the journey of Peter. Through my own clinical journey as well, I came from the opposite end, where I had a clinic where we had a psychology division and we had a nutrition division. So like mindset habits, and kind of, the nutrition lifestyle habits. And what was missing was the energetic work. And that's what Harry and Peter Fraser's work, that's why I was drawn to NES, because if we want to create health, we want this multi-layered, multifactorial approach. So we need to do the bioenergetic work to kind of set the blueprint up, if you like, that's in place, so that we've got everything working properly in the biochemistry. But we don't want to throw out the nutrition, the biochemistry. We can't afford to throw out the mindset work. So what we did when we created Energy4Life is we have this 6-month program which involves bioenergetic scanning and taking infoceuticals, but it's 20, I think it's actually 24 lessons. So it's 6 lessons in 4 modules. And what we do is we address these other levels to make sure that, if you're doing the energetic work but you're ignoring the nutrition, that you're not going to get the results that you are best. It works synergistically. So when somebody starts to address their sort of environment and lifestyle and the biochemistry and nutrition, then they bring in the mindset and they understand the context of like the impact of other people and social relations. And they're bringing all that in at the same time as addressing the bioenergetics. This is where you're going to get results that are synergistic results. And what we have and it's always been a big sort of criticism of mine, I suppose, of the alternative medicine community, is we have these fragmented approaches. So we have sort of one practitioner saying, this one thing, nutrition is everything. Actually, that's part of the picture. It's all about structural body work. Just do a chiropractor. That's all you. Well, that's part of the picture.
It's all in your head, and you can change your belief system, etc.
So that's the other group. The you can change your life, and all you need to worry about is mindset. That's the kind of the secret, the movie The Secret, which was just like, all you need to do is change your mind, you'll get everything you want. So and that's actually not holistic. None of those approaches on their own are holistic. You're not practicing holistic health if you're just focused in one area. And it was a big criticism of mine of the complementary medicine side. We're so critical of the conventional medicine being reductionistic in their very stuck biochemical approach with using drugs.
Thing, isn't it? I think it's actually really difficult not to be reductionist, because our brains can generally only understand so much. Then we become experts in some particular slice, and then we try and understand our world through that lens, and we ignore the rest of
it's very
reality. It's easy to do. Yeah,
it's very easy. So part of the reasons this course isn't only expansional for practitioners, or people who would like to become practitioners. Obviously, it's also potentially life-changing for consumers and clients who just want to do the program to change their life. But it's an expansional experience. If you're a practitioner, or you're somebody who's pretty clued up about health and you've been to see loads of practitioners, it will help people understand how their own modality fits into the bigger picture, where it can't deliver and where it can deliver. So sometimes people they need to go off and do some energetic work, and then they come back to doing the biochemistry, and then the biochemistry works better because they did the energy work.
I was thinking it's like a spiral, really, and
that's exactly it.
You was come around, you're like, oh right, it's time to go to the next level.
Yes, and
nutrition now, or whatever it is.
Exactly. And so you start with you get some things like, and we'll talk about what's in each of the 4 modules. Actually, why don't we talk about that and the spiral and what's in the 4 modules? Just as an aside, it's not a big deal, but I created this based on a 4-quadrant model, which was actually based on Ken Wilber's work. And Ken Wilber is the greatest theoretical psychologist probably ever to walk the planet. He's got 20 books published. He's one of the most important philosophers of our time. He was the most read academic writer at one stage. I think he's still the most translated. So just if people want to know like where it is the four quadrants, it's called AQAL, Quadrant All Level approach, that was defined by integral theory, that was Ken Wilber. So I think there is nobody who was more holistic. He had the spiritual, he's done more to bring energy and spirituality into mainstream academia than probably anybody else as an academic. So the point being, we have a really strong foundation, theoretical foundation for the E4L course, based on literally world-class information and research. And there's nobody really who's actually ever managed to sort of counter Ken Wilber. There's nobody who's made a strong argument about how his theory is wrong in any way. So, and it's got immediate applications and obvious applications into health and well-being and medicine. So what are these four quadrants? This is an overview. We have to consider, like, if you put a human being, put yourself in the middle of the four quadrants, and you've basically got, you're right in the middle, you're in the middle of the four quadrants, right? Maybe we can get a picture of the four quadrants.
Okay, I'll get myself in the center of the screen. There you go. All right.
And essentially, in each of these quadrants is going to be impacting a person's health and well-being. And so what's the first one? Obviously, what's happening in the physical body, both at the biochemistry level. You might have some B12 deficiency. You might need some. You might be not eating enough protein. You might be eating too much processed and refined food. You might be needing to look at exercise, diet, and like fasting, for example. The body module, as we call it, one of the four quadrants that's impacting your health and well-being, also includes the level above the biochemistry, which is where the bioenergetics comes in. So we need to think about the fields that are actually controlling the biochemistry. So there's a lot going on, obviously, in the body module. It's everything that we're working on bioenergetically, as well as what you might need to do, diet and lifestyle. But it's very much to do with, your body as an individual and also your behaviors. So there's, obviously that's where a conventional medicine would sit, all nutrition types, most therapies, include dentistry, it's all in that sort of body module. So that's the body module. What's module number 2? Well, we don't exist in a vacuum. There's obviously an environment that's impacting us. And the environment is things like chemicals in the environment, and the next level up, the bioenergetics, EMFs, in the environment. It's going to be things like our exposure to toxins in water, the water that we drink, exposure to sunlight, how much time we get exposed to the earth. So there's you as an individual, it's your body, and then there's like you are not in a vacuum, you are in an environment that's having a profound impact on your health and well-being. So what you're exposed to in terms of things like the quality and type of water, sunlight, earthing, chemicals, EMFs, being connected to earth or not, all of that. That's all the environment module. Now, the other thing is we have tremendous research behind is that your mindset has a profound impact on your health and well-being. Mindset. So that's top left-hand quadrant. And that is, we have all the evidence of just taking the placebo effect, for example. We know, just a belief about something, taking something, a kind of fake treatment, if you like, will actually work for you. And placebo is probably the most tested of all randomized controlled trials, right? Because it's in every trial. So the mindset, kind of how you are approaching your health, how you feel about yourself, whether you believe you can get better or not, the connections between emotional things happening in your life and how much that is impacting the manifestation of symptoms of physical illness, obviously is a huge area. And there's tremendous, you've got 30 years of psychoneuroimmunology research to confirm that. I always love the work done by Princeton Anomalies Research, which, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research that was in Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field, where she literally explains how human intention affects quantum processes. So, and if
it wasn't for that chapter, NES wouldn't exist.
Chapter in The Field, by Lynn McTaggart, who's a bestseller.
Yeah, if you're into NES or want to understand it at a deeper level, read The Field.
Yes, and look at the pair research. So you can look at, we can look at the body, the mind-body connection from psychoneuroimmunology. We can look at it from an epigenetic perspective, but we can also think about it from the quantum physics perspective. And there's so much evidence for that you can't afford not to consider the mindset and address that if you're trying to heal and have optimum energy and feel great and be well. So that's the third quadrant. And then the last quadrant is the most underexposed, the most downplayed, and yet is so important. you don't, in the mind, that your belief systems, you kind of your emotional state, you also don't exist in a vacuum. You exist in a social context. You are surrounded by other people, and they have a tremendous impact on your health and well-being. And, you know, it's been shown, huge studies of over 300,000 people, for example, showing that the quality of your social relations is a stronger indicator of survival than your BMI, how much alcohol you drink, all the things in the other modules and things, and even smoking 15 cigarettes a day, the quality of your social relations. And also, this is that module, it's called the social module. We actually start getting you to look at how much time are you spending with social media. It's like, that's another thing, like, so the social connections with the people. In this module as well is also early life stress or adverse childhood events, which again is the most underexposed risk factor. Adverse childhood events, or we call them ACEs, are about trauma in childhood. And again, massive studies showing over 17,500 adults, where if you have a lot of early life stress, you have a dramatic increased risk of 7 out of the top 10 causes of death, essentially. If you had sort of 6 ACEs, you have a 20-year reduction in lifespan. If you have just 4 ACEs, you have things like 400% increased risk of depression, Alzheimer's, all the brain disorders. And basically, it's across the board. If you're going to jump in there, Harry?
Well, no, I was just going to ask about your subpersonality integration, because I think there's a lesson called subpersonality integration, and you know,
in that module. So now the thing is about, just to start big picture with the social module. How E4L is designed is it's an educational course. Now, it isn't therapy, but it's educational. And when it comes to healing ACEs, early life stress, which is, by the way, the reason it's in the social module is that it's all relational trauma. And people think of trauma as like being in a car crash, maybe being in a natural disaster, war veterans. Actually, that's a minority of what people have experienced. Only a small people I see in my clinic actually have that type of trauma. If you have that type of trauma, you actually need to go and get help with somebody who specializes in big T trauma. That's not what E4L does. It's actually for educational support around this relational trauma. And relational trauma, like, hardly anybody comes out of childhood without it. It's things like physical, sexual, emotional abuse, physical and emotional neglect, and things like incarceration by a family member, the parents separating or divorce. I mean, that's 50% of everybody right away, right? So 67% of all adults said they'd had an ACE in childhood. But the point being, this type of relational trauma that comes from our interactions with key caregivers, with other people, what happens is when that type of trauma happens, it's not a one-off shock, it's not a one-off discrete incident. It actually causes our personalities to fragment, because we're actually trying to survive childhood, and this is where it fits in with the subpersonality stuff, and this is where the education piece comes in. If we have a parent who, say, you know, is too depressed to be loving towards us because they've got their own issues, or they are, you know, they're narcissistic, or they've got a drink problem, or they're not available to the child is now not in a safe environment, and that directly starts to, it sends the child changes the biochemistry, it changes the child's energy field, it changes their basically everything, and makes them have this increased risk of propensity to illness in adulthood. And one of the things that it does, when we talk about fragmentation, it's where basically, as a survival strategy, we will sort of develop a personality trait to adapt to a maladaptive environment. So, for example, if we don't just get unconditional love as a child.
Do you think without, so strip the trauma away?
Yeah.
Do you think someone has the potential of an optimal integrated personality, and then, say, these little things that happen from your environment start creating those subs?
Well, you see, it depends. Right, we're jumping very deep here, but so you've got...
I've got another question after that. Okay.
So, well, look, if you look at most schools of psychology, most schools, types of psychology will all say that you as a human being, you are not one being. You are a set of multiple personalities. We all are. Actually, you could even go as far as saying, there's a part of you that knows how to drive. You could say that's a subpersonality, a part of you that knows how to read. There's a part of you that's a brilliant entrepreneur. We don't mind those sub parts of ourselves. They're great. They serve us. The bits that become troublesome are what I call grey and dark subpersonalities. Grey ones are like the discrete incidents where it's like maybe fear of public speaking. Maybe you're scared of swimming because you're going to get eaten by a shark. Maybe it's more like the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, in relation to one discrete incident. That maybe you had a car accident and you can't drive anymore because you're scared of driving because that happened. I call those grey subpersonalities because they do cause you trouble. They take energy away from you. We're all about energy for life.
So is each of our individuals' purpose on the planet to integrate our personalities over our lifetime?
That's it. Exactly right.
Easy, there you go. That's
so
all you have to do.
Yes, and some of the dark ones, by the way, we call the dark subpersonalities. These are ones where this is the abandonment issues. It's more of the core relational trauma that people have, where they might have had an unloving childhood, and it's not a one-off discrete incident. It's almost like ambient trauma. It's there all the time, like small incidents over a period of time of maybe just chronic lack of emotional connection. Only 55% of children actually attach securely to their parent, to the mother, to the key caregiver. So this is shadow work, by the way. It's also called shadow work, where you've got these kind of this shadow part of ourselves. That's the dark aspect that feels worthless, that feels abandoned. That's the part of you that will sabotage you being on a health program. It's the part of you that might hate you. It actually hates you and thinks that you're a worthless waste of time. The study of the ACEs study was actually done by Kaiser Permanente, the hospital sort of system here in San Diego. And the researcher was Dr. Felitti, and he was running a weight loss clinic. And it was going very successfully. People were losing weight, and then they would have a 55% dropout rate. And he was like, well, what's going on? Like, why are people doing so well? And then they seem to be getting more anxious, and it's just not working, and then they drop out. So he basically did a survey of the people in the clinic, like it was an obesity clinic. And by mistake, someone answered a question that he didn't even ask. And they said, look, I experienced sexual abuse in childhood. And then he sort of realized he actually brought that question in and started asking more. And it turned out to be really prevalent in this obesity clinic. Anyway,
the ones that dropped out.
Yes. And one woman summed it up when she said, being overweight was a protection mechanism against unwanted male attention. So this is the type of trauma I'm talking about that sabotages people being on a health program. Some people are been traumatized, and so they become super achievers. They develop what we call the achiever subpersonality, like go, 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 and they can't stop and they can't rest.
I don't have that one, Niki.
So Harry might know somebody quite well who's like that. In fact, he might know somebody intimately well who's like that, and maybe it's you. Yes, we all have some degree of that. And often it comes about because the message, the non-verbal message we got as a child was, your message would have been, and I've got some of that in me as well, is you're only okay and lovable if you achieve things and you create a level of kind of status and value in the world. And you can do a great thing, a service to others, like you have, Harry, but it's only when it gets out of balance and we don't know how to stop, and we don't know how to take rest time. And actually stopping and taking rest time for a traumatized person is actually anxiety producing, because you're actually starting to feel, oh my God, if I don't stop, or if I stop,
know what to do with your mind. Yeah.
Yes, and this is actually what's happening. This is deep. This is very deep. But actually, the reason we're not stopping is because to the inner child who's not yet resolved their lovability issues, self-love issues, the child is feeling, literally, they feel like they're going to die if they don't keep achieving, because that was the message the child got. If mum and dad if I don't achieve, mum and dad won't love me and I'm going to die. And that is the message children get, because children are 100% reliant on their parents. So if they don't please the parents, they get chucked out of the tribe and they will not survive. So it's very deep subconscious.
God, that's hardcore.
It is. Yeah, so you went right there because you want to talk about subpersonality. Yeah. So the course does go deep in that area, and there's no other course out there It's very educational in this way. It's a massive expansion of awareness. One thing I will just make clear is that if somebody does have trauma, this isn't therapy in the course. What it helps you to do is have all the education, and it can be life-changing. But when you do go and see a therapist, it will massively enhance what you do in the therapy. So it's an accompaniment.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, when you say, just to predicate that, obviously the Energy4Life program is, well, it is designed as part of a 6-month program with
Yes.
a coach who, you know, in between, well, you know,
So let's just get clear about that. Yeah.
And you know, read the material, but you can reference back to the coach and get support from the coach.
Well, so the other thing is the coaching is, just to make it clear, it's a type of mindset and life coaching. And the job of the coach, because it is a 6-month course, the job of the coach is to keep you going on the course. The job of the coach isn't a therapist either, by the way. The coach might help you identify if you do need to go and see a therapist who's specializing. We will help you find what you need, basically, because it is a minefield out there. You know, some people, there's different types of therapy that are appropriate for different things. So your coach is there for accountability. The coach is they're not therapists. The coaches that you get when you do the EFRL course, they're going to keep you accountable. You're going to have a very non-judgmental, supportive person there for you, who also does the scanning every month and so on. But they're going to help you to stick to your program and help you identify where you've got stuck, where you need extra help. Sometimes people do need to go. You might need to, you know, you might have a discussion with your coach and actually you do need to go and get more massages, or you might need to go to a dentist and actually get your fillings sorted out. So this is the beauty of the EFRL course, is that it's almost like a smorgasbord of like, look, this is everything that can be affecting your health, and there'll be areas that each individual needs to go into in more depth. Some people could just do the course, have a totally life-changing experience, and that's all they need. Other people, the course is like a roadmap that's going to help them identify, you know, people will get more out of different modules than others. Some people will be like, oh my God, the life-changing module for me was the body module. Or it was doing the bioenergetics, or it was like, no, it was when I started to do circadian rhythm. We could actually start talking about some of the other modules and some of the other things that we do.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about light strategies as you're down the circadian rhythm path?
Yeah. So let's talk about the environment module. One of the things that, by the way, everything affects everything. Everything affects everything. So even if somebody's got, like, they're working on the emotional stuff, when somebody puts circadian rhythm strategies in place and a diet to manage blood sugar control, that was the body module. Diet to manage blood sugar control, get your diet sorted.
And it's easier for them to think more integrated thoughts.
Yes. So every psychologist and psychiatrist, I think, should know about, one of the first things that people should do is do a circadian rhythm management program, which I'll talk about what that is in a second, and a diet to manage blood sugar control. And that half your depression and anxiety will probably disappear just doing those things. That will then make you sort of be more balanced and more self-aware, so that you start to build awareness around, okay, what depression, anxiety am I having that's actually coming from psychological side that needs to be addressed at that level. So the circadian rhythm has been completely life-changing, teaching people basically how to align again with Earth and the sunlight, getting sunlight, light. There's two things. There's timing of exposure to light. And there's also actually using light as a therapy, as a type of therapy in itself. But the timing that we have, like having bright light during the day, getting bright light in the first 30 minutes on waking, things like this, making sure we turn all the lights off at night, not getting blue light exposure is now massively shown to be increasing, you know, sleep issues. And we know now that if you have sleep issues, you can't heal if you have sleep issues.
Well, I mean, this is an interesting thing. What do you think? So if you were creating a body battery box, maybe a pod. I don't like the word box, but it was BBB, the BBB. If you were creating the BBB, what would one put in it? So like you could put grounding plates to give you, you know, negative electron charge through the feet. You could have ionizers inside of it. You'd have red light. But, you know, when you just said about blue light, you know, blue light is linked to waking you up. So
during the day, you just don't want it at night. That's so blue light. I've been hearing people who are sort of getting the blue blocking glasses and wearing them during the day. Don't do that. You want the blue light during the day.
No. Well, then you're all dozy. Then you're dozy all day.
Blue light is actually alertness. It's telling.
But they do look cool, which I think is half the point, isn't it?
Uh, so just to say about circadian rhythm, this is what we do in each of the lessons. We really do get into the science. I was actually saying the science is what helps people stay motivated on the program, because I could just tell you, you just need to do these 10 things a day. You need to get up at this time. You need to go back. Like, I could just give you the practical tools. But what helps people to stay motivated is when we show you the hardcore mainstream science behind this. And that's what we do in every lesson where we can. So, for example, if you look at circadian rhythm, basically people actually need to understand that we have this light that comes through the retinal, the eyes, actually gets sent to the, it's the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, which speaks to the hypothalamus and tells the hypothalamus, by timing exposure to light, tells the hypothalamus, hey, it's daylight, or no, it's actually nighttime. And the body has clock genes that will literally respond to these environmental signals. So you're meant to be having things like higher testosterone during the day. You're meant to have high cortisol in the morning. There's a 24-hour rhythm, a 24-hour circadian rhythm. And the body only knows what hormones to produce at what time of day by the environmental signals. And what we've screwed up in today's society is these environmental signals. There's actually 4 key environmental signals. Light is one of them. Another one is timing of food. If you are eating at night and you're eating after 9 p.m., the body is getting the message that it's daytime. So not only are you going to start putting on weight over time, and the research studies have proven that, you're also going to have worse sleep. Everybody who gets worse sleep has shortened lifespan. So one of them is light exposure. The other one is food timing. So don't eat 3 hours before bed is a classic, as we'll show you about what happens at night. You need this thing called autophagy at night, where the whole of the body's proteins recycle and regenerate. If you're not sending the signals at the right time of the day, all of that stuff goes to pot. And guess what? You end up with chronic illness. There's also things like it's temperature exposure. It's another thing that's a disaster. Like, you're meant to be warmer during the day and colder at night. So we have air conditioning on the day and in the day, right? And then we've got heating on at night. So it's all screwed as well, with everything. So we've got
about the hot bath thing. So it's just fascinating. Like, so I don't know. I've read in certain books that supposedly a hot bath is actually still slightly colder than your blood, and therefore it's cooling. But I just think that's horseshit. And
yeah, what the research I've seen is that a hot bath is a good idea. It's a bit paradoxical. A hot bath before bed will raise your body temperature and then cause a big drop in body temperature, and that's what you want. You want to be cooler at night. So paradoxically, a hot bath will lower body temperature because you want lower body temperature at night. And interesting, one of the best things you can do in the morning is a cold shower.
Probably just because it shuts down T3 T4 conversion, because you're extra hot, so the body's like just turns off the conversion, then you cool down.
It's probably autonomic nervous system related as well as having an impact, but cold showers in the morning will actually trigger the body's parasympathetic response and paradoxically increase body temperature during the day. Like, it gives you a shock and a wake up. So yeah, cold showers in the morning were part of circadian rhythm, and a great these habits, these biohacking habits, if you like. So, and we've got tons, haven't we? So we've got 6 lessons.
I think what maybe we'll do, as you touched on nervous system, why don't we go to vagus nerve and then do that? And because all we're really doing is giving little snippets, because the full thing is on energy4life.com.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about, in the mind module, we include neuroscience. We include all the neuroscience research. So not only do we just talk about what we mentioned about mind-body connections, psychoneuroimmunology, the impact of mind on epigenetics and the pair research, we also talk about, like, what's your attitude to your health right now? If you're overcoming a chronic illness or working with that, what is the meaning that you're giving that in your life? Are you extremely angry, depressed, and negative about what's going on in your life? We need to address all of that. But we also need to address the nervous system. And basically, what we know, this is like another layer that we need to address. We've got the energetic level, we've got the biochemistry, and kind of in the middle is the nervous system level. It's tremendously important. If you are in a state of fight, flight, chronic fight, flight, or freeze response, either because of just chronic stress, or it could have been trauma in childhood, you really can't heal the body. You don't have open regulation. Even like things like the infoceuticals won't work as well. What you're doing on the biochemistry, supplements won't work as well. Nothing works as well if you have basically your autonomic nervous system is dysregulated. And so that can be dysregulated by being stuck in a chronic sympathetic nervous system response. You can also be in a freeze response where the wrong part of the vagus nerve is being activated. It's kind of a shutdown. If you think about, these pictures of possums that play dead, there's parts of us that can be traumatized and we kind of just go into shutdown mode.
I haven't even told you this, Nikki. This is a slight spoiler alert, like 2 years ahead, which is a little
Maybe
bit...
don't do it then.
I'll do it anyway. Like sort of maybe there's some algorithms when you're looking at HRV that can basically tell the I guess in conventional HRV, you can tell the difference of whether sympathetic is more active or parasympathetic, etc. But there's some Russian research where you can actually see how it's affecting all the way down the spine and meridians and chakras. And then there's there's an interesting patent. I've been speaking to the researchers behind the patent who can basically you can get a full medical EKG from the size of something and put on a sticker. So instead of needing like the 2 electrodes over the heart or 2 in your hand, you can just do it from a sticker, which is pretty cool because that basically means we can get a reading of basically the quality of the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, and meridians, etc. 24 hours a day, seven days a week. I mean, the battery should last 5 days or so. It is a bit of a spoiler alert because I won't get it to the market for at least 2 years at this point. But
okay, so let's tie that into so that we make it relevant. So the most important method of test for stress is heart rate, known as heart rate variability, and Harry said HRV. So he's talking about an instrument that's actually going to measure how well regulated you are. And if you are stuck in the wrong side of the vagus nerve, or you're in sympathetic stress all the time, nothing else will work. So one of the most important things you can do is to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the rest, digest, detoxify, feed and breathe side of the autonomic nervous system. And the research, again, it's mind-blowing research. They've stimulated the vagus nerve for like 8 weeks with people who have severe arthritis, and the person has recovered. Actually, they stimulated it. They recovered in 8 weeks. They had severe arthritis just by stimulating the vagus nerve. People have recovered in this research from fibromyalgia. They've treated depression and had massive improvement in that as well. So the vagus nerve is, when you switch on the vagus nerve, it heals the gut. It causes the tight junctions between the cells of the epithelial layer of the gut lining. It does things like it causes you to actually produce your digestive enzymes properly, and stomach acid, peristalsis, so the migrating motor complex, which is the one thing they're saying isn't working properly in SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth. That's all the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve it literally stimulates like your sex hormones, and it's connected to the reproductive organs as well. So basically, if you're in a state of stress, you are shortening your lifespan. And just the vagus nerve in Latin means wandering nerve, and the reason is that it literally connects with all the organs practically in the body.
Yeah, there's a connection to, the Chinese, they have their most popular remedy is called Free and Easy Wanderer, which the sort of translation is, basically it's about making the body be more free and easy, so you don't have stagnant chi. Not that they were thinking of vagus nerve, like they were more thinking like liver chi and blood flow, but
yeah, it's going to be across. There'll be an Ayurvedic connection. There'll be a connection across all the ancients as well, because it's so important to stimulate the vagus nerve. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, this is really interesting. Not only is everything going to be working better, you're going to be stimulating stem cells like for restoration. You're going to be sleeping better. It's also associated with positive emotional states. So if you're in a lower emotional state, you're in a lower vagal tone, lower HRV, which we don't want. We want high vagal tone. So this is part of a lot. People need to build into their lifestyle this vagal stimulation, and that's all part of the course. We show you about 40 different ways that you can stimulate the vagus nerve, and then we sort of motivate you to go, okay, let's start
the easiest is plugging in a thing in your ear to the My Health. And
well, I would get lifestyle practices in place, because things like meditation, yoga, tai chi, you know, it's kind of, I would get the lifestyle stuff going. Like, it's not, you're not going to make up, you know, it's one of these things where you'll have to sort of keep falling. Yeah, it's just, I would do it as lifestyle, and maybe use a stimulator as a therapeutic intervention when people actually need more support. But the basic lifestyle stuff, you want to build that into your way of being. And how long should you stimulate the vagus nerve for? How long should you eat vegetables for health? Like, it's a lifestyle thing, it's forever. So the vagus nerve it's a real breakthrough in understanding you've got to get regulated first to actually have to be able to do everything else. So this is why we don't want these reductionistic approaches. And there's also, we in the mind module, we have some brain retraining work you can do as well. So sometimes people need to change their relationship to their symptoms, and that can actually be a huge part of feeling better. So we do brain retraining, like neuroplasticity, a little bit of that in there as well.
I mean, to sum it up, it's basically a gateway that activates your body's healing system, and if it's not working properly, your healing system just won't turn on.
Yes, and you know, for both practitioners and people who are just doing it for themselves and their families, this is the thing about the course is you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars seeing individual practitioners for each of those things, and only get, like, you know, a little bit.
I didn't consider that. So really, the huge benefit is actually, so you can have this huge, broad, holistic view. Exactly. And then you're like, oh, holy shit, I just need to sort out you basically self-identify, you know, your areas of weakness, and therefore go off in the right direction for you. That's
and people can waste thousands of dollars doing a therapy or an intervention that isn't appropriate for them. They've missed the basics, they've done things in the wrong order.
I spent 10 years in bed doing that.
Yes. So I think that's, and the reason I was, when I came to you, Harry, and said I want to write a course, and you're like, yeah, we need a course. I did that because I can't fit everything that I needed to say to somebody into a one-to-one consultation where, you know, I'm $300 to $500 an hour. That's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. Whereas, like, you know, for a lot less than that, you're going to get access to, you know, 24 hours worth of training that is world-class, science-backed, motivational, practical application about how to do things. And so that was one of the main sort of reasons that I did it. It makes the practitioner's life easier. It makes the client, like, they can go off and you can go through the program as fast or as slow as you want as well. So if you find it's like too much, you just go slowly. Eat, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. There's other people who'll speed through much faster.
I wouldn't even try and eat an elephant.
Yeah, the course that's kind of what we did with the course. And that's why we did it. It was actually to make everybody's life easier, to bring costs down. People love programs. It gives you a direction and a roadmap. And I think it has the potential to be kind of real life changing. And people can sort of, you know, the future doctors are the clients. That's what we're doing with this. The future we want the clients to be the future doctors. We're empowering people to take care of themselves. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do as well. Is we don't, you know, it costs thousands of dollars to be reliant on practitioners all the time. So you become a sophisticated healthcare consumer by doing a course like this, and you'll be more clued up than some health practitioners. You'll be spending less money on that, and you'll be getting more targeted results that are likely to be more successful with the practitioners that you do see. So I think that's a pretty darn good benefit.
And just to qualify that, like all of the Energy4Life practitioners and coaches, they all go through Niki's program and are all certified properly.
Yes, so exactly. And you know, and they're there to guide you, to keep you on track with that, and, you know, help you if you do need to go off down a deeper rabbit hole in a particular area, because that's what you need. But yeah, I think it's true holistic health. And yeah, I know that people are doing the course and absolutely they love it, and they do, it's nice because it's also the community they've got as well, with being part of a community, which is great. So
perfect. Well,
lovely.
I think that's probably good, because there's 26 modules, so we won't
26 lessons, yes.
we won't go through them all. I think we actually have to put up an overall. So on energy4life.com, I think we just need to add a tab under the program tab that actually describes the full course, because
The curriculum.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually on the site. I looked just before our podcast. There's the program, but there's no link. There's no actual link. So we will put that in there. So if you go to energy4life.com under services, by the time you hear this podcast, a link will be there on the full details.
Lovely. So awesome. I hope everybody enjoyed the podcast. Harry, thank you for making it possible to do something like this. It's a great service.
You,
yeah, no, thank you. It's been good.
Cool. All right. Over and out. Thanks for listening to the Energy for Life podcast. Now, if you like our show or you want to try out bioenergetics for yourself, check out our website, energy4life.com. Or if you're a practitioner who wants to try out the system on a trial in your clinic, go to neshealth.com. Looking forward to you joining us on iTunes or Spotify. If you enjoyed the show, please take the time to rate, review, and of course, share. Thank you, and see you again soon.